all very welcome today. I'll tell you a little bit about myself and kind of how GentleBirth really came about, because a lot of people are interested in the evolution of the program and what it is, what it isn't, and hopefully I can share some of those insights with you this afternoon. So I guess my journey started, I trained as a doula back in 2004, 2005. After having my own experience of having a doula at my son's birth. And we were living in California at the time. And then I ended up moving out into Singapore with my husband's work. And I was in Singapore for 2 years. And we were getting ready to finish up in Singapore. And I knew that I'd been bitten by the birth bug, and I knew that I really wanted to continue my work. But at that time, we were moving back to Ireland, and their doulas were non-existent. And so I thought, well, I probably need something else to supplement my income, because I didn't think doula work was going to carry me through. And this was kind of, again, back in 2005 when we moved back. So I took the Mong method, the hypnobirthing training with Marie Mong herself in Singapore in 2005, just before we went back to Ireland. And it really opened my mind, literally, to how powerful the focused mind is. Because I know we tend to talk about the mind as powerful, but the mind can be powerful in different ways. And as I think probably most of you know, if you're involved in the birth world, or if you've been pregnant yourself, you know that the mind can take us to some less than positive places. And one of the things you'll learn in the training is that mind wandering is usually kind of the cause of a lot of angst during pregnancy and actually during life as well. And because our mind tends to wander about 50% of the time. So I took the hypnobirthing, the Mong method training, really loved it. I was taught by Mickey Mong herself, who sadly passed earlier this year. And she was definitely a thought leader and just brought hypnosis to the main stage. And I think it helped, I guess, reduce a lot of the fear around hypnosis and the idea that you're going to be made to do things that you don't want to do. So I jumped with both feet into hypnobirthing and started teaching it in Ireland. And there were very few hypnobirthing instructors at that time. So I was teaching in my community, and I was teaching the 5-week course, which is a prerequisite. But I was getting calls from families, from couples all over Ireland looking for classes, and it was really difficult for large groups of people to travel. So I started to travel. So almost every weekend I was in a different part of Ireland teaching hypnobirthing. And I had gotten, I guess, special permission from Mickey herself to travel and to teach it in a 2-day format. So after I've been teaching, it was kind of coming up on a year, and I've been teaching this 2-day format, and I'm looking at, at my outcomes, and I really couldn't see a significant difference in the outcomes of the families that I'd worked with over 5 weeks and the families that I'd worked with over 2 days in this kind of intensive class. So I started to wonder, well, is it the class itself that makes a difference, or is it what couples are doing after the class that makes the difference? And of course, it was what they were doing when they went home, when they actually left the class. So and there were aspects of hypnobirthing, although I think it is a fantastic program, there were aspects of hypnobirthing that for me just didn't jive, because I was starting to look into going back to college to do my midwifery training. And as a doula, to not talk about pain or to avoid the conversation about pain, and this focus on, if you just try hard enough and you practice hard enough, that your baby's going to be sneezed out, just wasn't holding true for me. And what I was finding was that couples were coming out of this experience. If it went well, then it can go incredibly well. It can be easy, it can be pain-free, but that was not the norm. For me, what I was finding was parents coming back to me saying, we saw those videos and it really wasn't like that. And mom was making a lot of noise and she seemed to be out of control. And if something else came up, like out of left field that they weren't expecting, maybe back labor or some other complication, they just really didn't have any other tools in their toolkit. And for me, it was really important that I wanted to, we talk about this in GentleBirth all the time, but stack the odds in their favor of having a great experience as they define it. So as the birthing person defines it, not me, not her obstetrician or her doula, but how is mom going to define this experience? And when I was teaching hypnobirthing, I felt like there was so much focus on only unmedicated birth. And then moms were kind of talking to each other and saying, well, you know, I gave in and I got the epidural, and they felt like they had failed. And I thought, is that really the message that we want these parents getting as they're starting out on this incredible journey, this challenging journey into parenthood? So I started there were aspects of hypnobirthing that I kind of dropped, and then I started to add my own flavor to it. And one of the first, I guess, different aspects that I added to it was the sports psychology, which really resonates so well with, especially for the male birth partners, because I wanted to figure out a way that we could speak their language, that they would, and because they do come into the class thinking that they're going to have to get in touch with their inner goddess, and they're quite, you know, hesitant coming into the class. But once we got started talking about the brain science and how you can actually, you know, change your brain with intentional mental activity, and looking at how sports personalities and elite athletes, how they train for an event, and what we call getting the head edge, the dads sat up in their seats. They were engaged. They saw the bigger picture of, this is not just about me holding my partner's hand and mopping her brow on the day. I have a really important role to play in the next coming weeks, during the birth and after. So for me, that was a hook that really got the male birth partners really engaged. So the sports psychology was the first aspect that I added. And then I started to add the mindfulness and meditation and cognitive behavioral therapy, and at a very kind of basic level, helping moms and their partners challenge their own thoughts about birth and breastfeeding and parenting. So by the end of that kind of about a first year of teaching hypnobirthing, it didn't look anything like hypnobirthing anymore. Really, the only thing we had in common was, yes, we have affirmations and we do hypnosis as a big part of it, but there was all of this extra tools and kind of skills and strategies for their toolkit. So I had a conversation with Mickey, and we kind of parted ways, and I told her kind of what I was developing, and kind of that's where it went from there. And it was initially created as a home study program. So I was teaching classes, but at that time, I mean, I think we've about 250 instructors now, but at that time it was just me, and I was traveling as much as I could, but I was also now back in college full-time doing my midwifery. So there were lots of parents contacting me trying to figure out, well, you know, I really want to learn these techniques and learn about this approach, but I live in, you know, this remote island off the west coast of Ireland, and it was unlikely I was actually going to get there to teach a class. So parents had access to this home study material. So back then, I think, Mary, I don't know if you remember, we started off, we had 3 CDs and a guidebook, and then it moved on to 6 CDs. And I think we ended up with, I think it was 12, was it 8 or 12 CDs? Because as the program evolved and I wanted to put more tools in the toolkit, I felt like, okay, so I want to give parents everything I possibly can, so that no matter what circumstances they're faced with, and it was kind of looking at the more common issues that could come up for parents. Maybe some parents knew right off the bat that they were going to have a planned cesarean for their maybe baby's health or mom's health. So are we going to exclude those parents? So I thought, no, let's give them tools to have a more relaxed cesarean birth, and give them tools to plan cesarean preferences. So that's kind of where it kind of evolved and kept evolving. And it got to a point there where, yeah, I think it was like we had like 12 CDs, and the guidebook kind of talked you through which CDs you would use when. But it was a lot of work. And I didn't want parents to have to, you know, wake up in the morning and say, okay, I'm 32 weeks and 6 days. What do I listen to today? What's going to really help, you know, shift my mindset to get really excited about my baby's birth and prepare for a positive birth? So, about, oh God, we're coming up, I think, on 5 years now. We made the decision to come back to the US. And so we packed up family, took kids out of school and moved back to the US, found ourselves back here in Silicon Valley because we really wanted to connect with the best brains in technology and be an area where alternative to kind of traditional birthing practices would be welcomed. So back to California we came, and we've been here for the last 5 years. And we launched the app there about, I guess, coming up on 3 years. And what was really important for me with the app was that I could put everything into the app. So it made it available then to parents all over the world, because at that time, the home study program, like the book and all of those CDs, was $99. So now we have an app that is $12.99, and parents could listen to it for a month, or they could do it for 6 months, or whatever they wanted to use it for. But we do tell parents that it's, the benefits are cumulative. So the more they use the program, the more they'll feel the benefits throughout their pregnancy, not just the actual labor itself. So let me kind of move on to some of these slides for you. So we launched the app, and we've kind of had a couple of updates. We have a new app that we are really excited about that's coming next month, hopefully just in time for the Christmas break. I would love to say, yeah, wake up and this is in your Christmas stocking, because it really is a game changer, not just for parents, but for the instructors as well who teach the program. So what you'll see in front of you here is, I guess, just kind of a breakdown of what we cover in, so we have the standard CBE curriculum. And if you don't have our prospectus that really kind of goes in depth into how the program evolved and what's in the curriculum, I can email that to you after today's session. So we have a standard CBE curriculum, which I think of as, this is the the vanilla, the generic topics, the signs and stages of labor, different medications, positions, comfort strategies. So we cover everything that's covered in a standard childbirth class. But then on top of that, then there's also a 6-week mindfulness for birth professionals, which it's a really key part of the program, because if you're going to teach meditation and talk to your clients about the benefits, and there's so many benefits to learning simple meditations, that I needed it. This had to be authentic. It needed to be coming from experience. So, and it's so lovely to read the feedback on instructors who have just completed the training, because they will always, I don't think I've had one instructor that's come back and said that wasn't helpful at all. Because it really, whether you're involved in the birth world as a doula or midwife or not, or working with your own children, if you have kids, it helps you really stay centered and gives you clarity when you're involved in a kind of anything stressful is happening. So that was kind of a big part for the mindfulness for every single instructor has to complete that 6-week program. And it's not, even though that's on top of the CBE curriculum, it's not any really extra work. What it is that when you go through those videos and the full content of the instructor training, it's a minimum of 50 hours of video content, but it's broken down into little kind of nuggets of videos. So you're rarely going to be sitting there through a 2-hour video. So I wanted to break it down so that these are key videos where you'll take notes, and you can kind of chip away through the program to get through it in a couple of months. So then you also have ongoing assessments. So, and I'm actually reviewing this at the moment for 2020, because I might have been a little bit too happy to assess people too frequently. So at the moment there are frequent assessments, and that's really helpful to give you, I guess, a gauge of where you're at in your knowledge. And there's some quizzes at the beginning as well, so that you'll see, and it's just a quiz to see kind of what's your baseline level of knowledge on this particular topic. And then you might have an assessment, a couple of assessment questions at the end of that topic. And then I had quite a quite an in-depth final assessment that's part of the certification process. But I think I might even take away, I'm just reviewing it with another curriculum developer at the moment, and because you're being assessed so thoroughly throughout the course, I'm not sure if there is a need to have another kind of big test at the end of it. So I think a lot of instructors will be happy with that. Then of course, hypnosis for birth is another key element of the training. And hypnosis itself, because it's self-hypnosis, it's actually, I wanted to really demystify hypnosis for birth professionals. And because you'll see in different programs where different programs will say, well, we teach medical hypnosis. So if a mom is teaching herself self-hypnosis and she's using the app every day, she is learning medical grade hypnosis. But as we all know, hypnosis is not an effective tool for everyone. So we do know that being able to be mindful and focus is something that everyone can do, and it is a skill that can be developed. But in saying that, about 80% of your clients will have a kind of a favorable reaction to hypnosis. But it's one tool in the toolkit. So we've got mindfulness for birth professionals, ongoing assessments, then hypnosis for birth. You'll also be introduced to CBT as well, and of course the sports psychology modules. So a big question that comes up for our instructors and potential instructors is, how can I teach? And I know there are programs out there that insist you teach a certain way, and over the years, I have, again, the program continues to evolve, and that's based on feedback from our instructors and feedback from the parents as well. So there is a kind of a leaning towards a blended learning, that flipped classroom model at the moment. And again, I think it's a great opportunity for instructors they can teach this one-day class. It's a quite intense class. There's like activities every hour to make sure that everyone's up and moving about and doing some kind of comfort measure or position every hour. But then they have additional content that they get access to our GentleBirth Institute after their class, so they can do a refresh on signs of labor and additional content that we just can't fit into that one day. So that one day class really gives you a lot more time for a discussion, and you're not racing through content. And I think it gets us really into the kind of the meat of the program. Mary, what's your experience? How do you feel what do your clients think of the one day compared to the 2-day class? How do you find that?
I was interested to see how they find it at the start, and people love it. They love it. A lot of there's a lot of people who work weekends. They can't afford to take 2 days off at a weekend, and that's very hard to get 2 days off. So they can just, if somebody works weekends, they can take one day off. It's done in the one day. Yeah. People have come back and said they love having the material to look over then when they get home. Yeah, it's really positive, and I do enjoy it as well. I teach a mix of the 1 and the 2, so I do 1 month 1 day and the next month 2 days. I just wanted to see, and I do find there's roughly equal take up of both, so that's perfect. Yeah, people love the 1 day though, and I do love it as well. It's great knowing, Sunday's off,
Yeah, and it's interesting because when we launched the 1 day class last year, we had a lot of discussion around with parents and with the instructors as well. And because there was this fear that this was, we're kind of rushing through the content, but I was very intentional about the content that I included in the live 1 day class. And for a lot of our instructors, and some of you may find this as well, that when you teach the 2 day class, that there's one aspect that you really love and there's an aspect that you don't love so much. So the 2 day workshop, and we give you the curriculum and the Prezi slides and videos and everything. So it's really just kind of, click and play and off you go. But with the 2 day workshop, there's I love the sports psychology and the brain science and understanding pain perception. So I could talk about that for days. And then the next day is the more childbirth education. It's, signs and stages of labor, comfort measures, and, navigating the system, birth preferences, all of that good stuff. But so for me, I love, day 1 was always my favorite. But I love day 2 as well. As a midwife, you love to do that all of that hands-on. But you do have, some instructors definitely I love the second day because I love all the hands-on and the kind of the more doula birthy stuff. as they kind of get to grips with more kind of the brain science around day one. But it's really enjoyable, and definitely not your standard birth preparation class. So you also have an option to depending on the community you're in and what the demands are from that community. Some parents still prefer to come to a weekly class, and it's up to you to determine, okay, so and it's a good to kind of connect in with parents in your community to find out, well, what would they like? What do they want? So some instructors will teach a class over 3 weeks. Some instructors will teach it over 4 weeks or 5 weeks. I don't think we've anyone teaching over 5 weeks. But then it depends, and you can change it then depending on what the interest is in your community. And then after every class, we take care of sending out all the evaluations and the registration forms, and then we provide all that feedback to the instructors at the end of the month. So I guess some of the differences, and there's many differences between, I guess, what we do and what other programs do. And first of all, I developed a program, and I've been doulaing for many years now, and not currently practicing as a midwife, but definitely haven't hung up my fetoscope just yet. But I love the research end of things, and I love teaching. So I'm very happy that I have an opportunity to continue doing this work, just not in a clinical sense. And then there's the GentleBirth app. So it's another way of us being able to reach families, again, all over the world through the app. So it's available. I think the only place it's not available right now is China. And that's simply because Apple and Google Play just don't have any control over what's released in China and what can be done with it potentially. You may know that we partnered with a group of doulas, nurses, and an amazing psychologist, Dr. Mona Lisa Barros, and we took GentleBirth to Brazil a couple of years ago. And Brazil, as you may be aware, has a really less than positive birth culture, and cesarean birth is very common. It's almost encouraged. Some of the hospitals, the private hospitals, would have over a 90% cesarean rate. So the app is also available in Portuguese, and Mona Lisa is just about to start a research project on the GentleBirth app in a university in Portugal. So we're very excited to have more research. We did have a research project that was done in an Irish hospital a couple of years ago that was absolutely amazing as well. So, and I can send you on any of this content if anyone would like to read more. And they also get the GentleBirth book. So that is in the app. It's at the moment, it's the guidebook, which is now going to be replaced next in December with the actual GentleBirth book. So that's the same book that's available on Amazon. And in 2020, 2020 is coming, but I just completed the final edits of my new book, which is Mindful Pregnancy. And that's being published by Penguin next year. So again, another tool to introduce parents to mindfulness and the GentleBirth app, which of course we hope then leads them into finding a live class and meeting an instructor. Everything is evidence-based. And we are quite clear in the workshop itself that, because, and for any of our birthing people on tonight, I'm an evidence-based geek, and I want the research. And so if I'm sharing a new research, but there were only 20 people in that study, yeah, I want to preface it with, this was a very small study. So we are quite selective and intentional about the evidence that we share, but we, as much as possible, we like to have robust, well-conducted studies. I guess next then is our brain training. So this is not really anything that anyone else is doing, and our focus on emotional well-being and emotional resilience, because we cannot control what's going to happen on the day during the birth itself. But what we can do with this brain training, so for parents who are using the app, every single day they are provided with a daily recommended brain training. And that starts right from day one when they join the app. So depending on where they are in their pregnancy, their training as such will be a little different. So if you're joining the app at 12 weeks pregnant, it's going to be quite different to the training you're going to receive if you join at 36 weeks. So, and then the journeys are determined then by the parents. So if maybe they're planning a VBAC, or mom is expecting twins. So there's content that's really tailored to the different birthing journeys. And again, it was about building that toolkit of skills and strategies. And you may have seen kind of some of my Instagram posts, and I talk about, you know, what the brain is doing in labor is just as important as what the baby is doing and what the body is doing. So although, you know, the double hip squeeze is just an incredible tool in labor, it works in labor and is a great skill to have for your partner, but not so great when it's 4 a.m. and your newborn won't latch, and you start to tell yourself the story that maybe I can't do this, or my baby is starving. And one of the ways that mindfulness training really helps new parents is that they start to catch themselves in those thoughts and start to recognize those thoughts. And instead of beating themselves up, they take a very gentle approach to it, and a very self-compassionate approach to, you know, this is a really tough time. This is quite an intense time. So I need to kind of settle my body, and simply by naming what's happening in their body right now, my heart is starting to race. I can feel my face getting hot. Simply by doing that, they're already turning down the activity that's in that stress response in the body. Because what we do know is that when we are in a state of stress, when that fight or flight response is happening, or any really highly emotional state, we don't make good decisions. So that rational part of the brain is totally offline. So I usually use that example of breastfeeding, because we want to help parents reach their breastfeeding goals, whatever they are, but we want to help them do it from a place of rationality and using that thinking brain, rather than that stress brain, which is going to sabotage their breastfeeding goals. So again, bringing mindfulness from the mountaintop, we've made, I mean, mindfulness just needs a huge PR review, because the idea that, you know, parents have time to sit in a darkened room with a Tibetan singing bowl, which I actually have one behind me here, I don't know if you can see it, it's just not realistic. So how can we bring these skills and the skill of focus to parents in a way that they understand and that they can really incorporate and weave into their day-to-day already stress experience, especially if they're working full-time or they're at home with a toddler. So some of the benefits that, and these are well borne out in the research, they can intentionally turn off that fight or flight response. And we go through a couple of different ways of doing this in the workshop itself. I don't know if you saw, I put out a video last week in a blog about meditative breathing, and meditative breathing is a very effective, very simple way of not just reducing the fight or flight response, but reducing pain perception, by reducing anxiety, by reducing depression and blood pressure in a very short period of time, just over a couple of weeks. So most childbirth classes that you go to, you're taught about, oh, this is how you breathe, nice and slow, but nobody's really talking about the science behind the breathing and what can we do, again, to stack the odds again. And I always say it's about controlling the controllables. And the one thing we do have full control over in labor is how we respond to what's unfolding. And likewise, after the baby arrives, how do we respond to when our baby is upset, or when you know, we're having a difficult time with the adjustment with our partner. So the mindfulness really helps there. It helps them tune into their inner and outer knowing when making decisions. So they do have the capacity to tune into that inner voice. And I think we're at a point at the moment in the kind of where birth is today, that we don't really trust ourselves, and we do tend to look outside for that information. And when we do listen to our gut, because I think many of us haven't really talked to our gut in a long time, because we're kind of living from the neck up. So we're not really connected and grounded into our body. So being able to tune into that inner wisdom, that inner knowledge in a way that's coming from a grounded place, a calm place. Because sometimes I think we can, with life being so fast paced and everyone dealing with so much stress in their lives right now, sometimes what we think is our inner wisdom or our gut response is actually a fear response, and it's the ability to be able to sit with that and say, okay, is this really my kind of my inner voice and that inner wisdom, or is this coming from a place of fear? There was some really good recent research around using meditation before an appointment. So getting your clients to listen in to some short meditation before they go into their prenatal appointment means they're actually in a calmer state. They will hear more and recall more. So they're in a better position then to take in information and process it and ask the questions that will help them have the best experience possible. You might know it, like lots of parents go into their appointments and they kind of go blank in the middle of it, and then, or they come out and think, oh, I should have asked this. And so having that way to settle themselves before they go into that prenatal definitely has benefits, so that they can really engage with their care provider, especially if there's decisions to be made around birth options, such as induction of labor. A big part that I see, excuse me, is, as I mentioned earlier, is resiliency. So we don't guarantee outcomes. We give our parents the tools and hope that they will go away and use those tools to build their own emotional resiliency. And what I see time and time again, and it's really what I consider to be where, with GentleBirth, where the rubber meets the road, is not that these parents go away and have incredibly positive, empowering births, because now I'm at a point where I've been doing this long enough that I get these emails regularly. I get them on Instagram all the time, and I'm absolutely thrilled for these parents. But then I'll get a message from someone who, and it'll be one of those long DMs, and I'm kind of reading through it, and I might be in a state of shock as I'm reading it, because it was kind of the worst case scenario. Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. Everything that could have come out of left field that was unexpected came out of left field for this poor family. But they came away from it feeling like, well, we used all the tools in our toolkit and we did everything we could, and we used all the skills and strategies, and we're okay with it, or we have now a plan for moving forward. And I just feel like, especially with such the increase in birth trauma, that here are some skills that we can help parents build resiliency, so that they take these tools with them long after the birth itself, and especially if they've had a difficult birth. They're far more self-compassionate, they're less judgmental of themselves, and I always say that they're more aware of that inner mean girl, or that inner narrator that we have constantly going through our minds, that kind of ticker tape of things that we say to ourselves that we would never say to our child, or would never say to a good friend. And so they become more aware of that kind of inner self-talk. They function better on less sleep, and there's some really good evidence around that, which is always helpful, because we know that most of the parents we're working with won't be sleeping really well. And then it does improve relationships with their partners, because again, it lets them step back from stressful situations. And I liken it to, if any of you have seen that movie with Keanu Reeves, Mary, what's the name of it?
This one, is it?
No, the one with them, they take the red pill or the blue pill. The Matrix, yeah. So, and I was thinking of Keanu Reeves. I saw he's all over social media today. But I think of it like the Matrix, so that you're going to the holiday dinner, and you know that your mother-in-law is going to throw some zingers your way, and you're ready for them. So, and what happens is, as usual, if we're a little bit tired, or we're just not feeling great, we take the bait. So the way I see this kind of meshing with the Matrix is, you see it coming. So, and which means you can kind of move to the side a little bit, or it doesn't hit the target that it was meant to, because you see that zinger comment coming, and it just doesn't impact you in the same way. You've got more compassion for yourself, more compassion for your mother-in-law, and there's really I can't say there's any downsides to having this kind of more awareness in your life. Then moving into the sports psychology, for any of you who are interested in kind of elite sports, We talk a lot about, you know, developing focus, again, tapping into that self-talk and being aware of it, and not taking the bait of our own self-talk, and learning how to change that self-talk. Setting realistic goals for, again, for the birth, for life after birth, and learning how to manage distractions. So we have a great exercise that we do in the workshop that helps, it really connects the dots for the birth partners to see how important their role is. Because what we do is we help parents understand, and it's an exercise that they will do, they will kind of walk around the room, we have paper up on the wall, that they are going to evaluate what kind of distractions, because our clients are training themselves in focus. So one of the partner's kind of main roles is to be a buffer to those distractions. So I want the partners understanding right from the beginning, this is the reality of the type of internal distractions that your partner might be faced with when you're laboring at home, having a great time, and it's all good. And some of the outer distractions. So inner distractions would be mom feeling like it's how long more is this going to take, or feeling worried or nervous. And then outer distractions could be something as simple as, you know, our next door neighbor's dog barks nonstop, and my, you know, partner is trying to focus, or we're having the kitchen renovated, and is there going to be a lot of noise and distraction and for that. So what we want to help parents and their partner understand is that we look at distractions in internal, external distractions in the home base. So then we look at okay, so let's go through and some of the inner and outer distractions in the hospital. And you really see that aha moment especially for the birth partners, when they see the list of external distractions really growing when they move into the hospital environment. So it helps parents understand that we're not just telling you that, hey, the research suggests that staying home until you're at least 4 or 5 centimeters is going to be, you know, means you're probably going to be less likely to have an unexpected cesarean. You're less likely to need pain medication. This is really the penny drops for them when they see, wow, there's a lot less distractions. And for birth partners or for dads, they're thinking there's a lot less work for me at home if I stay home a bit longer. So let's talk about our plans for staying home as comfortable as we possibly can. And then looking at top-down activity, which again is using the neocortex, that frontal part of the brain, which I know Michelle O'Donnell says we need to turn off in labor. And I, as I said in a recent blog, if you are, and I've met Michelle several times, and we've had this conversation several times, if you are laboring at home with a midwife and Michelle O'Donnell, and there's a beautiful pool and dim lighting, you can get into labor land really easily. But sometimes there are times when activating the neocortex helps to settle that limbic brain. It helps to turn off the fight or flight response, especially in a busy maternity unit. Yeah, so why do we need GentleBirth? Well, I think we need it more than ever, and we need a birth preparation program that inspires parents, inspires instructors, that ignites passion and excitement. And that's innovative. So I think when it comes to innovation, we continue to look at the research, we continue to look at different techniques and the technology that we're using as well. So GentleBirth itself, it's inclusive of all birth preferences and birth experiences. And this was really important to me because I've seen that, I guess, some birth preparation programs are very, very focused on one aspect, and that is that it is unmedicated or it is informed, and who are we to judge if a parent is going to have a positive birth or not because they choose not to read the articles. And so I wanted to create this safe space, this non-judgmental space, and for any of you who are on some of our moms groups, you'll see that parents will post questions about epidurals, and there's nobody jumping on the discussion to tell them how bad the epidurals are. The information is available to the parents. And one thing that I was taught in my doula training, and I taught as a DONA doula trainer myself, is that we have to meet parents where they are. And if they want the information, great, we will be happy to provide that for them. And if they don't, that's okay too. Because again, it's about how those parents define a positive birth for themselves. And it's about, we're preparing parents for the birth that they might not have expected. And that comes back to that emotional resiliency as well. For, you know, the birth itself may take 24 hours and now they have 18 years after that they have to adjust to, especially those first couple of months, that first year is really, really intense. So yes, again, the double hip squeeze is amazing for labor if you need it, and I use it with most clients. But I do find that with my GentleBirth clients now, I have to do a lot less hands-on comfort measures, because these parents are really well informed. They're very motivated. They come to the class, they engage with the class, they go away and they do the work. They listen to the app, they write their birth preferences. So as a doula, I can say I love working with our GentleBirth parents, because it's very seldom now that I am getting out of bed at 3 in the morning to go to a birth, because we've already talked about what their plans are for early labor, and they are quite happy that they are doing this as a team themselves. And so I might get the odd text, but I'm generally not joining them until they are in established labor and kind of getting ready to get going. And of course, induction changes everything, of course, but generally for spontaneous labors, I have a lot less hands-on work to do. A lot less comfort measures, because we're working with the brain. And in my midwifery training and in my doula training, there's so much focus on what the body is doing, and it's the brain. This is the machine that's taking care of everything. This is what interprets whether a sensation is pressure, is stretching, or is pain. And our emotional mindset is also really well tied up in pain perception. So for me, I use VR with my clients now as well, because it changes pain perceptions. There's so much we can do that's outside of the standard childbirth curriculum that changes that experience for parents. So what is involved in the instructor training itself? Sorry, I jumped forward there. So we're looking at about, it's about 50 hours of video content. Again, it's in short kind of bite-sized videos. It takes about 12 to 14 weeks to complete the actual certification itself. I think the soonest I've seen an instructor finish was probably around 9 to 10 weeks, because the 6 weeks is the mindfulness course you can take concurrently as you're doing the CVE training as well. Then there's the ongoing assessments, and then the learners Facebook group, where I connect in, a couple of times a week, and we have a help desk as well, and you can always reach out to me with any questions. And then we have a monthly call as well, just to talk about the curriculum and how everyone's doing and what I can do to inspire you, to motivate you to get through the rest of the course itself. So when you finish that training, it doesn't really stop there. So after you finish your training, you then have access to the course contents for another 3 months to go back and refresh, and you'll then take our business training course, which is, if you're already an established doula, some of this might not be new to you, but it's really about strategic planning and visioning for getting out there, getting those classes launched, and successfully. How are you going to actually fill those classes? We give you all of the presentation materials, your videos, your teaching guide. Then you have your own GentleBirth dashboard in our website, so you can add your classes, view your earnings and your enrollments. We take care of sending all the enrollment paperwork, download all our materials, for all our marketing materials. So we want you to hit the ground running, rather than have to go away then and design logos and create additional materials. Sorry, that's the doorbell for the postman. Then we have access to our knowledge base. So we have a knowledge base that I update regularly with new research. So that's just a self-serve. You can dip in and out of that with any new research that's come out, or any changes to the curriculum, or our questions that we have about how our instructors are doing. So that's in our help desk as well. So then, and there's also monthly calls with me for our certified instructors. And usually that time is spent around with new instructors with how can I build my profile in my community. So, and that's kind of part of what I love to do is mentoring our new instructors. And I will, if kind of you meet me halfway, I will give 150% to help you get up and running, help you get your classes going, and market yourself in your community. We just recently started, about a month ago, we started a group called Confident on Camera, because a lot of our instructors, and especially if you're not from a business background, and actually even if you are, video is where it's at the moment. So trying to encourage our instructors to people want to meet you. They want to see your lovely website and they see your posts on Instagram, but they want to know who you are and who's behind this class, and that authentic kind of connection is really, really important these days. So that new group that we set up, Confident on Camera, I set challenges every week and everyone has to upload a video, and it's totally voluntary. Nobody has to do it, but we do have one rule in the group, is that there's no lurking. If you're joining the group, that you're going to jump in feet first and be vulnerable like all of us are, and put ourselves out there. So so that's going really well, because it really does kind of push you a little bit to start making just short videos. And then I guess, again, up to you to decide then how you want to teach. Because it was really important to me as the program evolved that we created a program that was sustainable for instructors based on their own family commitments and other work commitments. So, so you guys get to decide what that is. So the fees, so last year we made the decision to bring the price down significantly so that we could get more feet on the street. There's no recertification fee, so $295, that includes everything. The one thing it doesn't include is the reading list. And so I usually suggest the easy way to get get the reading done is to go to the library, ask them to order in some of the books. Get some of the books on Audible if you have a subscription, or borrow some of the books. So it really is for $295 for what you're getting, the amount of content and support. It's not going to go any lower than $295. This is kind of where we're at the moment. It may increase a little bit in 2020, but through the end of the year it will be at $295. You can register on the website gentlebirth.com, and there's some more information on the website there as well if you want to have a look at some other information about instructor training. So I guess we'll finish up, and I can answer any questions that you have. But I think take your time and look at different programs and figure out what's important for you, for your professional, for your personal goals. What's important for you in teaching CBE. And do you have time to commit to the training, and essentially if you don't already have a doula business, you're not already in the birth world, it is you're committing to being self-employed and developing a business. So let me I want to show you just another couple of little things I have here. So I will send, this is our ebook. I will send this out to the list today. So it's about a 30-page document, and it just takes you through a little bit more in depth in the content, and a little bit around the psychology of the content as well. And the app itself and what's included. I had one more that I was going to show you. If I can get into, no, I thought I could get in there. So do you have any questions? I know I've talked nonstop for the last 40 minutes. As you can see, this is something that I feel really passionate about, that I would talk all day about if you would sit and listen to me. Probably my dog would probably sit and listen to me. I'm sure you've got better things to be doing this evening. Anything I can help you with, or any questions that you have that Mary and I can help? If you want to type away there and let us know what, if you have any questions. Mary, you still there?
Yes, I am indeed.
I'm sure you must be tired of hearing all this, yeah?
Oh, it was great. You know me, Tracy. I love listening to it. How many times did I sit in on the workshops before I actually taught one?
I know, I should have counted.
So no, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love kind of going, yes, and I get that. And the brain training thing, I think for me is the most interesting. I mean, I love the birth preparation and all of that, but I do think, you know, you can get that from so many different things.
Yeah.
But the brain training is what makes it really unique. And it is also, what I love about it is that the partners love it. The partners just get it. They love it. They come into the workshop looking a bit haggard and a little bit harassed. Yeah. You know, they've been definitely dragged there, a lot of them. And then, you know, we start talking about, it doesn't matter where you give birth, it matters where you are in your head and preparing for it and stuff. And you can see the little light bulbs going on. They get it and they start getting really excited and into it.
Yeah,
and that
I joke about when you have, Evelyn, I'm going to answer your question now. I just want to throw this comment in because it's something that our instructors see all the time. When you wrap up your workshop and the parents come up to you at the end of it and the dads say, I wish our due date was sooner because I feel really ready now and I'm excited and I know what I'm doing. It's like that's just, I mean, you can't do any better than that. If parents are leaving thinking, oh, I wish we were having a baby tomorrow, they feel that prepared and they've experienced that mindset intervention really quickly, because mindset interventions can happen in as short as 15 minutes. So they've been with us for a couple of hours and they've had layer after layer of, you can do this. This can be an amazing experience. You can have all of these tools. You just have to use the tools in the toolkit. They really do get it. Evelyn, you had a question with hypno babies. No, we do not have any sales territories at all for GentleBirth. Of course we have our team in Brazil, and it's kind of like a franchise. So, but there's actually it's almost better to have another instructor not on your doorstep, but in your area, especially if you're involved in birth work, to have a backup. And in some areas where we have instructors teaching, like a couple of instructors in one area, like maybe in Dublin, what they do is, like, we just get together and we look at, okay, so we figure out the dates together so that we don't have an overlap, because ideally we want the more dates that we have out there, instead of everyone having their workshop on the same date, we want to provide as much choice for parents as we can. So, and in our surveys, when we survey parents after the workshop, generally the reason that they have chosen a workshop is usually because of the dates suited them, and not usually because it was a particular instructor, but the dates worked for them or the location worked for them. So I hope that answers your question. But no, we don't have specific territories, and it's been working really well for us because we see ourselves as we're kind of working together. Mary, you've had a great time in Cork, haven't you? You really haven't had anyone else teaching in your area.
Yeah, no, there's people around, all right. I think there are some people teaching.
Private classes as well.
What?
I think some of them are doing kind of private classes, so they can kind of.
I don't do. I mean, when I started off, I started doing private classes because obviously GentleBirth was new in Ireland, and people. So there is a bit of you kind of getting your confidence, getting your knowledge built up, and then getting the word out there. So at the start, I used to do private classes, but now I just do the workshops. I mean, it was great at the start to do it. I was so eager to teach and get the classes, but I didn't, like nowadays, it's only the workshop,
Yeah.
Class there, you're expecting growth. There's a growing number of people seeking mindfulness birth options. Absolutely, I think, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're seeing this. I mean, you don't have to look far to see it in the all over social media and about the benefits of mindfulness. We have Google down the street here. They have mindfulness classes. We have Salesforce has a meditation room. And we're seeing, I wrote a paper for the practicing midwife there 2 years ago. And there is this really, there's been an explosion in research into meditation and the benefits of meditation. And we're seeing that trickle down into the birth world. But I just think meditation has just got such a bad PR that it's just, people think that it takes a lot of time and they have to be all zen. I am not the most zen person. I get angry, I get frustrated. But when I do get angry or I go off the deep end, I go off the deep end for a lot less time than I would have before I started to meditate. Tara is asking, do we cover anything in post-birth trauma? Not in the workshop itself, but part of the training now in the mindfulness training is focused on trauma-based meditation. Because I think what we're seeing now is, because a lot of birth preparation programs are seeing this interest in mindfulness, and even I think there's a lot of confusion around, well, hypnobirthing is meditation, and they're two very different practices. I'd say it's like, you can go to prenatal yoga and prenatal Pilates. They both are good exercise, but they exercise different parts of the body in a different way. And it's the same with meditation and hypnobirthing. They're actually quite different. But yes, Tara, not in the workshop itself, but we do have resources for parents as well who might have experienced birth trauma, and to refer them on to those resources. And actually, what's interesting is we do have a lot of parents that come to the training, or sorry, not to the training, to the workshops, because they've had previous birth trauma. And there is a track in the app itself, Healing After Birth Trauma, which is not something, I think for some parents, they find it helpful just as kind of when they feel they want to take that first step into talking to somebody about it, or because it's still, unfortunately, in kind of the mainstream, people look at you when you talk about birth trauma and like, sure, as we all know, you have a healthy baby. What are you complaining about? So we're starting to see that recognition of birth trauma, and that it is a kind of a specialist skill to help parents through that birth trauma. But we do see a lot of families come to GentleBirth because they've just really had a really negative first experience and they want to do this differently. What's the couple pay for classes? So it depends on the instructor. So when we kind of started in the US, we thought it would be a good idea to have kind of a set point where everyone would charge around the same amount, and there was a minimum charge. But if you were living in a small town in Nebraska, you can't charge $375 for a class. So we leave it up to the instructors. But what we do say to instructors is that we will never be kind of the cheapest option on the block. We bring so much to the table, and with the app and the book and I guess the ongoing support that our families get from GentleBirth, so that when I actually just talked to someone about this morning. So instructors decide what they're going to charge, but I always say, look at what comparable programs are charging in your area. So what is another specialist program charging? Are hypnobirthing or hypnobabies or another specialist class? And usually I would suggest kind of pricing yourself around there. But there's always, I'm happy to jump on a call and have a chat about that and kind of see what the landscape is like in your area, what would make sense. It's always easier to come down in price than it is to go up. So that's usually the conversation we start to have, about looking at kind of where do we start at. And there's always ways, like we can create discount coupons that you can, if you're going to do a kind of launching your classes, that you can launch your classes with, my normal class is, $295, but for, through Easter 2020, I'm offering a $50 or a $75 discount, so that again, it lets you kind of put the feelers out there as to what your pricing would work for you in that area, in that community. The class is not included in their membership. So when they book their class, so they can book their class through our website and we take care of all the admin, or they can do it, put it on your own website. So if they book it through us, then we give them automatic access to the app for, at the moment they get 30 days for the app. And then again, depending on where they are in their pregnancy, whether they want to kind of continue subscribing themselves, they can. Tara is asking how many couples per class you recommend, and do they get the book included? Well, the book is now in the app. Well, the new book will be in the app next month. So they don't get the hard copy of the book, but some instructors purchase the book in bulk, and they give the book, am I getting tongue tied, give the book out at their classes for parents. But again, we're at this stage where now personally I love books. I like to have a hard copy book in my hand that I can scribble notes in and bend the pages down. But I love my books. But there's a lot of parents out there that prefer everything in the digital format. So yeah, and the highlighter, yeah, totally. So, but how many couples per class? It really depends on the comfort level of the instructor and getting started as well. So we will have, some of our instructors might, like Shelley in Limerick, will teach, like, she probably has like 6 to 8 couples per class, like consistently every month. And she would not be in a very affluent area. She's actually in quite a resource poor area. So, but she consistently fills her classes. She also teaches yoga, so she's in front of expectant moms quite a bit. Mary, what's your kind of going rate for, how many do you normally have in your classes?
Average is about six or 7. Sometimes I've had 12. I prefer, I suppose for me, I prefer about 8 as well. Like I find when it gets bigger than that, it's hard to know who everyone is. And I like to follow up and keep in touch with people. I think that really helps the follow up, because people, you know, it's great for recommending. Then, you know, people are really, they often say, oh, it's great, the aftercare. And if you've loads, sure, I don't know who I'm talking to anymore, because I'm really bad with names. So yeah, so if, you know, if it's around the 8 mark, I usually can manage that. But after that, but obviously I don't say no either. I have taught bigger classes as well. Yeah. Yeah, and they all, you know, it can be nice. People, they all get to know each other, and, you know, they're all connected. One of the things I ask at the start is, you know, when they're roughly due, so then they can kind of connect in with other people around the same dates and areas as themselves. So yeah, it's really nice for them. And often I do meetups then, GentleBirth meetups, and I haven't done one in a while, but you know, I just pick a local coffee shop and I tell everyone who's been there to come along. And, you know, it's lovely seeing there's a few people who've made friends through the meetups and the workshops. A few years on still, some of them still come, like 3 or 4 years on, and they're still coming to the meetups. Like,
yeah, so they bring on the babies as well.
Yeah, now they're on their 2nd baby, and it's just really, really nice. I love that, you know. So there's a real real family element to it, like getting to know them and them getting to know each other. I enjoy that bit of it.
Tara, just when a lot of kind of new instructors, especially if they're new to facilitating classes or public speaking, a lot of the new instructors set themselves up just teaching private classes. So they might just teach 1 or 2 couples, and it helps them just get really familiar with the content and get more confidence then, and then they grow their classes from there. So it's, and you'll hear me say this a million times, that when you get to kind of the halfway point in your training, you need to start looking at venues, start talking in your community and putting out information on social media that your classes are coming. And I recommend you start marketing your classes, or just, you know, building a profile about your classes 3 months before your first class. Because what you don't want to have happen is you've completed a training and now you're planning on teaching you're already not cool. Well, you've completed the training and then you put a class on in 2 weeks' time, and then you're wondering why nobody's there. So I always say you give yourself as much lead in as you can for those classes, and just so that we can kind of, even if you're only teaching 1 or 2 couples, it gets you really confident with teaching the content.
And it gets the word out there. So if you start off doing one-to-ones, you get to know the couple, they get to know you, and then they recommend you to other people, especially in smaller communities like Cork, I don't know what the population is down here, maybe 300,000 or something. Cork 400,000 where I live. I mean, that could be completely wrong now, but it's not huge, right? And so it's very much word of mouth, and I get a huge amount of word of mouth. But that's because I've been teaching for so long. At the start, you do have to put work into it, and going out and networking was really helpful. You know, like getting people along to your class that you know might be influential, and letting other people know about it. So yeah, it does take a while to start. Oh, look, she's asking how much are birth couples generally interested in hiring a doula. Well, yeah, we have a doula agency. I run a doula agency here in Ireland, and we get so every workshop I get at least one couple that wants to hire a birth doula, usually after doing the workshop. Yeah, at least one, sometimes two. And we do postpartum as well, so sometimes they'll go for the postpartum, but yeah, there's always at least one, which is great. I don't do a sell or anything. I just put it, but often it's partners thinking, I wouldn't mind a bit of support here. It's a lot to remember.
Yeah, they do. And I think it's parents, especially the birth parents, when they realize, wow, part of them is thinking, wow, I have so much that I'm responsible for. And then they hear about, because we do talk about, about doulas and what we can do to support them. A lot of the partners are like, okay, well, if we got one of those doula persons, well, that might take a little bit of pressure off me. And again, there's so much evidence there to support having that continuous presence with them in labor. So it's kind of ebbs and flows, because I've taught classes where I might have talked to a couple coming in, and they were really considering about having a doula, and then they left the class feeling so confident that they're like, we're good. We don't need a doula now. So it was kind of a double-edged sword. But part of me is like, well, I'm really happy that they're leaving here so confident that the partner is now gets it, and they're ready to go and do this. So, and part of me thinking, oh, I would have really loved to work with these, but at the moment I'm doing a lot of online kind of virtual doula work with GentleBirth couples. I'll have people. I put a message out on Facebook this morning, because the last couple of weeks, I've had people message me in labor, or their partner message me and ask for tips and information. I'm thinking, you should have hired a doula. But of course, I'm always happy to help as well. It's 1:10, everybody here in California. So I hope this was helpful in, I guess, introducing you at least to the GentleBirth approach. I will send you out some more information, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll send you Mary's details as well, and some of our US instructors. We want to talk to some of our US instructors as well. Hope you found it helpful. Any other questions there before we kind of log off for the evening? Mary, thank you for joining us.
Oh yeah, thank you. It was lovely to be on here, and I hope everybody enjoyed the evening. And look, best thing I ever did was do the GentleBirth training. I love it. I'm teaching it 10 years and I still love it. And I think that's a huge, that just says a lot, because, that's a long time to be teaching the class. But one of the things that I love as well, Tracy, and you didn't really say this, is that Tracy has said she's really passionate about the brain training stuff, and she is absolutely passionate. So she is always reading and always researching. And then she's like, oh, maybe we could add this to the workshop, or think about this. So it doesn't change massively, but changes do happen. It's always it does update as the information updates, and I do like that about it. That makes it really special, I think, because the evidence is always current. Yeah.
I think we do have some instructors who have taught other programs, but they're just bored of teaching the same stuff, and again, because we're not attached to the outcome, we're giving them the tools, and we know these tools can really be like game changers for them for becoming new parents. Like for me, it's about, okay, so I'm going to help you understand these tools, but go away and use them, and they will just make such a difference in their lives. It's and like I still talk to GentleBirth couples I've taught years and years ago, that they will say now their kids are off in primary school, and they still use a lot of the strategies for their own sanity. So as a doula, we can only be there for the birth and a little bit after, but as a doula, as a midwife, I'm giving them these tools that they're going to use in their lives for the rest of their lives. So I think that's pretty special.
And Tara's just said there her therapy is neuroscience techniques for trauma. Wow, you love it, Tara. Seriously, you love it, because the neuroscience part of it is my favorite part, because it's so interesting, the brain training. It's fascinating, and seeing people really get it. And the other thing for me, actually, as an instructor, is the app is brilliant. And I'm not pregnant, and I've no intention of being pregnant, but I still use the app. It's fantastic. Like I've used it the last few nights now. I get a little bit of just before my periods, I get insomnia, just a little bit of insomnia, and there's a sleep track on it, and oh my goodness, it is so fantastic. I'd be lost without it. Every time I get the insomnia, I stick on that track, and I'm gone. And there's loads of lovely affirmations and mindfulness tracks. So you do use it a lot, even if you're not pregnant. You would get a huge amount of use out of the app. I use it nearly every day. I love it, and it's so handy. Oh my goodness! And I think that's great for couples as well. It is so handy to go, it's on the app. There's a track for that. Or Tracy is also very open to ideas and suggestions. And just last year the epidural tracks came on, and the cesarean. That was because of feedback.
The
feedback couples need, and what are they looking for. And I love that as well, that there's constantly additions to it, and it's so user friendly for couples, I think.
Because the partners need their own kind of brain training. So the fact that they've got specific tracks that they can use for whether that's male partners or female partners as well. So again, we're trying to be as inclusive as we can. So always open to feedback and suggestions, and as how we can continue to improve the program. All right, thanks everybody. I will be in touch. I hope you found that helpful. And again, any questions at all, please feel free to give me a shout. All right, thanks everybody.
Bye.
Bye.